Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Youth Room podcast. I am Keith Seymour, and this is
Ryne Cottle.
And we are here today to discuss the important topic of delegation. How do you know when to give away ministry? How do you know when you're doing too much? And how can you practically do less and still accomplish more? So we're going to talk about this today on the podcast. Now, this podcast is sponsored by Edge Club, and you can access a free student missionary training that you can actually show to your students to take the guesswork on how to reach more students in your community through public school, middle school, and high school ministries. The training consists of gospel urgency, how to actually motivate students on how to share the gospel fluency, how to actually do that, so how to concisely yet comprehensively share the gospel, the good news of Jesus, with their friends through conversation out loud with words. And then additionally, it goes over a gospel strategy on how to launch an after-school evangelistic club in a public middle or high school in your area. So if you're interested in that free training, we have nothing to sell you, and the training is accessible at edgeclub.org/training. Now, let's get into our topic today, which is on delegation. And I recently commended you on this delegation aspect, much to your surprise, which I was kind of surprised that you were surprised, because I thought you were kind of owning this. But I've observed in your ministry, one of the things that I think you can tell if you're good at delegating is if you can not show up and things still happen. So I call that the kidney stone test, where, so say you're planning a camp or planning an event at your church, whatever, youth group, and all of a sudden you get a kidney stone and you just physically cannot come. Like you just get super sick or whatever, and you cannot come. Will things still happen? And for those of us that are normal, and in ministry trying to just, maybe we're not at that point yet. I think that's probably resonate with a lot of people, where it's like, man, no, a lot of things depend on me. And I think there's a couple things at play there. So one, you can make them depend on you because you feel like you're needed more, which that's a trap that you can fall into. And then two, you just might not have the leaders and the student leaders that are capable of delegating to quite yet. So how do you develop those leaders? How do you get to the point where you can hand off ministry? And then what's involved with that process so that you can actually know what to delegate, what's important for you to do. And I think there's a tendency, especially if you're paid, your paid staff, that you feel like you have to do certain things because you're paid to. And I think we can, kind of peel back the layers of that and really boil down to like, okay, in ministry, we're called to equip the saints for the work of the ministry, not do the ministry. Although we're going to do the ministry because we love to do ministry too, right? Yep. So with that, what are some things that you would give for advice for someone that needs to delegate more, i.e. myself? I feel like I'm guilty of this. There's been seasons where I've been better at it, but right now I feel like I'm at the point where I need to hand off some ministry responsibilities so that I can be freed up a little bit more to focus on kind of overarching goals. So talk to us about this. How do you pass the kidney stone test where you can just not show up? And
I like the pause you put between how can you pass the kidney stone and rest. So
a little play on words there.
Yeah, so I think, I was surprised when you said this, because I do think there's a lot of things that I probably could pass off, but I haven't, right? Because we all know in the short run, it takes more effort and time to train somebody than it does just to do it in yourself. But in the long run, obviously, we know where that gets you. So we have the benefit, maybe unique benefit. I don't know how many of our audience they can relate, but we are a multi-voice church. So this idea of delegating is kind of played out.
So it's just like hear lots of voices in your head all the time.
Yeah. No, so we have elders and pastors who share the pulpit, and so we have different voices speaking in. 3 or 4 people who fill the pulpit on any given Sunday. So it's kind of modeled top down that, hey, we don't want this to be dependent on one person. And so that's actually really been drilled into each of us, is like, we don't want your ministry to be dependent on you. We call it, you say the kidney stone test. My pastor calls it the bus test. Like, if you get hit by a bus tomorrow and you're gone.
It's a little bit more violent.
Yeah. But it gets the point across, right? It's like, if God forbid one day, like, that's it for me, what happens, And of course, there's a learning curve. Like, it's not just going to be smooth transition, right? Yeah. But, like, can it still go forward? And so the way that it's been phrased to me that's really been helpful is you can either structure for control or growth, but not not both.
Both. Yeah,
So like
good.
you either need you need to understand like we might be limiting our ministry's ability to grow because we want to control, whether consciously or subconsciously. And so we are at a point in our youth group, and I even mentioned this a couple episodes ago, but it's like it's out of control. Like I no longer have control over the youth ministry, but God does. And, you know, I'm doing my best to go through. It's out of control from a standpoint of kids here, kids there, stuff, like all different types of stuff, right? So there's a part of me that's difficult for, because it's like, so a kid might get saved and I might never know about it. I might never, like kids are coming now and I don't know their names. Like that's really hard for me. But you can either structure for control or growth. And so if you're struggling with delegating, I think we need to step back and say, am I limiting the ability to increase and grow this ministry because I feel like I need to do certain things?
Yeah.
And so that's how it was supposed to be. And that became really helpful to where it's like, okay, now there's freedom to delegate because now I understand by giving things away, then things can actually grow more. So I think reframing the way we think about it, which is like, if I can only do more, well, it's like, well, you can only do so much, you know, so we need to give things away. The other thing is, it was kind of told it to me this way. My pastor has a way with words sometimes, and it's hilarious. But the very first thing he told me is like, Ryne, he's like, we're going to unleash you. He's like, but he's like, you can get in some trouble being unleashed. So he's like, we'll give you enough leash to hang yourself. He's like, you know, so like, we're going to let you run. We're not going to hold anybody back. If you're here and you're in the seat, that means that we trust you. Go. But a lot of times that's not how we do it. We bring on volunteers, and in some ways it's smart, right? We make them like prove themselves and go through all of that's good, right? But in our ministry, we're big believers of, look, if you're here, like, go. Here's the boundaries. But don't come asking me every time if you need permission or something, or could we do this? Could we do this? Like I've done my best to train you, and just go. If something happens down the road where I've got to come back and clean up the mess, like we'll do it, you know? But at the end of the day, when we bring people on board and we trust them, then we need to trust them with everything we can trust.
Yeah.
So for instance, like there's been conversations where it's easy for me to be like, well, I'm the youth leader, I need to have this conversation with the parents. But it's like, but this small group leader was the one who had this conversation with the kid and going down and saying like, would you be willing and comfortable to be able to be the one to contact parents and talk through them, you know, with this? I'm available if you want me to be a part of that call. I'll even do it for you if you're not comfortable, you know, because I want to help you. But providing opportunities for growth like that, because now when something happens, sometimes there are parents, my small group leaders will contact the parents right away without letting me know, but then they'll come in and tell me like right away, like, hey, by the way, I wanted you to know like this happened. So I went out to talk to their parents afterwards, and then they let me know. Because once you get to a certain point, you can't be the one having those conversations all the time. It's just not possible. So when you trust somebody, you just got to unleash them and let them go. And sometimes that's hard because you're like, what could they do, right? But that's why I think the barrier to entry at different levels in your ministry, you can have different levels to where there's some people that you're like, we're only going to trust you with this piece. Yeah. But then trust them with it. Like if you're going to let them have it, just trust them with it and make sure that you're providing accountability and expectations and you have that relationship, but you're fully letting them go. Yeah. So I think, understanding you can structure for control or growth. Anything you can give away, give away. So if I trust them with check-in, well, then I don't need to be standing by check-in to make sure they're doing it right. Like I have leaders that come in, I just set the iPads up and put it there, and then guess what? I can go shoot hoops in the gym, and while kids come in, I get to hang out with kids while they do the check-in. If there's a parent that comes in, they know how to show the parent around, and if they need to come get me or they want to come get me, they'll come get me. I don't have to worry about it. Simple things like setting up the chairs in the youth room. It's like I could spend all my time doing it beforehand, and I'm really OCD about the rows, but I just grab students. I'm like, hey, could you do this? Could you set the youth room up like it's normally? And they take care of it. The technology piece, I have kids who they handle the technology piece. And so it's just training them to do it, and then they feel empowered.
Well, I think when we do delegate or involve people, there's more ownership. Yeah. And I think that's a huge benefit of delegating and including more people. And even if they can't do it, quote, as good as I can or whatever, or like the way that I want to do it right away. We're actually missing an opportunity for them to be involved with the ownership of the ministry because they're putting skin in the game. They're devoted time. And then I found that even letting people fail in that role with some boundaries, of course, like, to like, for instance, I remember we had as I was trying to delegate some of our program elements out like years ago. I was like, you know what? Like, I don't have to plan for a game. Like, that's not like a unique thing that I have to do. And it was after like I created like a only I list, where I'm like, do I need to be the one leading the game? Do I need to be the one that does announcements? Do I need to be the one that leads prayer time, or all this different stuff? And so through that, I identified someone in our youth ministry who was kind of like a silly guy, like he had like a good stage presence, and I was like, you know what? You're the new game guy, and he's like, okay. And so I even nicknamed him the Fun Ninja. I was like, you got to be ready to bring a game idea every week. And there was one time we had our stand-up like leadership meeting right before our program started, and I was like, okay, so you got the game? And he's like, oh no, I don't have one. I'm like, all right, well, we just won't have a game today. And he's like, what? I was like, it's okay, like no big deal. It's like, but if you didn't bring a game, we just won't have one. And I think for the first time, like you could see like in his face, he was like, this is real. Like,
yeah.
And it's not like I publicly humiliate him like, hey guys, we don't have a game tonight because Fun Ninja over here didn't bring one, And it's just like, no, like we just know that if we say we're going to do something, we're going to follow through with it, and we're going to allow that failure to happen, of course, within boundaries. It wasn't like, it's like, now if there was like, someone that I trust to give a message and they didn't come with a message, I think I'd still give a message. But when it comes to like things like that, we have to allow some room for failure, but to provide that ownership of the ministry to where it's not so dependent on us. Yeah. And of course, this is something that I need to grow. And like, even just because I've been strong in past seasons of ministry, it's like, I was reminded of a reason. I'm like, and you're even saying like, what do you mean? Like, I'm good at delegation. Cause I was like, you're going to take the lead for this one. Cause like, I have some things to learn in this season right now because I think I need to let go of control of some things to involve other people. Yeah. And, so now what are some things that you would say are the best to delegate? Like you mentioned a couple examples, but what are some things that you could or should delegate? And what are some things that you shouldn't delegate?
Yeah.
What are some decisions that you make, or how do you guide those decisions?
Mm-hmm. Well, I like what you said about the only I list, right? Like, at the end of the day, there are things that I could delegate, but they might not be as meaningful. For instance, like texting parents. Like I encourage my small group leaders to do that, right? I encourage my small group leaders to go to kids' activities and games, and they do. But there is still something that they recognize. It's like when the student ministry director or the youth pastor is the one reaching out, or the youth pastor is the one coming to the game. For some reason, the way we work, they just kind of connect that a little bit stronger in a kid's sense. So yeah, there are some things that even you could delegate, but maybe it might still be best for you to be involved in. From a youth group programming standpoint, I think check-in is a big one. Like just having, check-in where you
should delegate.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Where you're not tied down to one place. And I think that's the biggest thing is we don't want to ever be tied down to one place to where we can't have the freedom to move. I think of, your campus pastor here is a former Navy SEAL. And while I was never a Navy SEAL.
Okay, so there is a distinction here. He's a retired Navy SEAL.
Not a former Navy SEAL.
Former Navy SEAL means like something bad happened.
Well, I didn't say ex-Navy SEAL, so that was my point.
Yeah, but I learned that too recently, and I was like, oh, yeah, so he's retired Navy SEAL.
But in the SEALs, it's shoot, move, communicate. Mm-hmm. And so they've actually, the platoon leader, if they are on, or the fire squad leader, whatever, if they're in the middle of it, then they can't see and they can't communicate. And so it's, we like to think of they're the guy kicking the door down, but if they are, then they can't really see and move people where they need to go. And so big things to delegate, anything that's going to keep you in one place and you don't now have freedom to go and move where it needs to be moved.
Address an issue or put out a fire.
Yep. So
literally
correct.
Put out a fire.
Yeah. So I try and say, hey, like I'm always going to be, whenever we play a game, I'm going to station everybody else, and then I'm going to be the person who's able to roam around. Whenever we have a programming event, I'm going to try and make sure everybody else is where they need to be, and then it gives me flexibility to move and be accessible. So in terms of things that are good to delegate, I think anything technology-wise, and anything check-in-wise, anything game prep-wise, even beyond that, like if you can have kids helping you create like things for social media that you're checking and improving, like those are valuable things. When it comes to designs for camp, like inviting kids and other leaders into that, like again, you have the final say and things like that, but they start to help you more. Putting together a playlist for youth group and things like those are things that kids and leaders love to do. But we also try and delegate in a way that we try and give other leaders the opportunity to teach. So like normally I'm the main teacher, but we will do certain topics or certain series where we're going to get everybody involved. So then my leaders are preparing messages as well. And then it just provides credibility. They get to speak in front of the kids, and then we can identify who's gifted in teaching as well, and start to maybe, as much as they can take on, give some of that as well, to where it's not just, well, Ryne said, so anytime I have a question, I'm going to come to Ryne because he's the one speaking. It's like, hey, there's other leaders here. So I think those are big things. The last thing I would say, kind of wrapping up the conversation, is you need to plan to miss youth group sometimes, which seems like a cardinal sin in ministry, right? That's the one time, like, I have to be there. And it's like, no. You need to plan to miss youth group sometimes. You don't want to be like, surprise, I'm not coming tonight, right? But like, when we schedule vacations, I try and actually miss a night or two, to where it's like, it forces replication and I prepare everything beforehand. You got this, you got this, you got this. And I might even say, I've got my phone, just call me if you need anything. But normally it just runs. And the nice part of Beauty is I can look at check-in. I can see all the students who can't, like, all that data is still there available to me, but I don't have to physically be there.
Yeah.
So I think if you can prepare your leaders for a night where you're not going to be there and then go away, it goes a long way to those leaders too, knowing that you trust them.
Huge. Yeah. So things that you wouldn't delegate to someone else. So we talked about, like, making that only I list, like, what can only I do? And so I would say, like, the first thing that usually youth leaders delegate, it's something that we've talked a lot about and we have opinions on, may not share the opinion with everybody, but is to delegate out the teaching of the Word of God. Like, as far as, like, using a curriculum, or like, just hitting play on a video or whatever. And so and I get it, because, like, everybody's busy. Not everybody has full-time devotion to doing ministry. And so but I would say, if at all possible, don't delegate that out. Create and wrestle with the Word of God that you're teaching first, so that you're following, like, that Ezra 7:10, where it's like, he studied and then did and then taught. And so it's like, you study the Word of God, you do it yourself, and then you teach it to other people. And I think we can also, like, we can miss out on. So I would just say, like, it's not like a rule of thumb, like, where it's like a major, command or whatever, like, that you need. But it's like, that's your competitive edge of leading students, is that you get to teach them the Word of God. You get to shepherd them through the Word of God. And so I would say that's one thing that we've been passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not delegating out, as far as, like, just allowing someone else to teach your students in that way. And I know there's different scales of that. So in other words, like, you can use an outline from something else, whatever, and then teach it yourself, use your own Illustrator, all that different stuff. But I would say, just be cautious about what you delegate out, because that can actually take away from you impacting ministry. Absolutely. And so how is it equipping other people? How are you shepherding people with the Word of God? And so for me, this is just like a personal decision that I made about my leaders. So I want them to have a positive experience, like, in serving. And some of the icky, like, not so fun parts of ministry, like, where you do have to call a parent for or like disciplining students, like, for things that. So I try to take that on from my leaders, like, that I don't delegate that out, because one, it carries a lot more weight if it's coming from the youth leader, youth pastor. But then also it's kind of freeing them up, so that they can just do like the vine work, so to speak.
Yep.
So in short, if you're familiar with the trellis and the vine, there's a book that talks about the different types of ministry. Of, like, vine work is like ministerial work, like soul care, preaching the Word, teaching the Word. And then you have trellis work, which is like providing the administrative, like, structure, like program elements and stuff of church work. And I would say delegate as much as you can of the trellis work out, but don't neglect that vine work, where you can actually care for people with spiritual soul care. So with that, we have a couple rapid fire questions. So this is actually a question I'm surprised that I've gotten more recently. I've had a few conversations about this recently. In fact, just a couple days ago, I had a conversation about this. What is a good church database to use?
This is such a youth pastor deep cut question.
Yeah. What is a good church? I mean, I don't even know if it's like, what is a good one to use? It's like, what do you use? I'll explain what we use and why we use it. But there's different levels of, like, some church database systems are used specifically for certain size churches. Yeah. So go ahead and share what you guys use.
Yeah. When I first came on, we used Church Community Builder, which I know a lot of people might be familiar with that. So that was all I knew. But then 3 years ago, we made the change to Planning Center. And I will. We are not sponsored.
Yeah.
by
By the way,
Planning
we're not sponsored by anything, so we can speak
There's no
freely.
agenda
Of,
but Planning Center, I actually really enjoy because the Church Center app that works with it is really helpful for youth group. Because there's a group inside the church app. So before we had to use like the Remind app or GroupMe outside communication apps, and now it's like no, download our church app, and then there's a group within that. Yeah. The other thing I like about it is there's so much data at your hands if you know how to do it. So there's pros and cons of everything, but we use Planning Center across the board for registrations and check-ins and groups and everything.
Good.
Are you guys Planning Center as well?
We use Planning Center for planning services.
Okay, that's all we used it for before, and then we expanded it.
And like scheduling, so like our worship team uses it for scheduling. The
services module. Yeah.
But we don't, I don't think we use it for anything else. I might be wrong. At least I don't.
Yeah.
We use, it's called Ministry Platform.
Okay.
And I don't know anything about, like, I've never even actually heard of another church using this. I'm sure there's lots of churches that use it, but I think it might be designed specifically for larger churches. And so before that, we use a program called Fellowship One. Okay. And I think that's designed, for I think smaller churches can use it, but it's more catered towards larger churches. So we use that for a lot of things. We use a couple of different apps and stuff for different things, but check-in is through, like we can actually do barcode scans and look up names if we need to for check-in. So I can run reports on check-in. So that's helpful to know.
Planning Center does it all together. Even our camp registration's all through Planning Center too.
So
it
same
all
thing
talks.
with,
it's
So I mean, usually like it'll be on all in one platform, whatever. Yeah. And so so we use that for Ministry Platform. Yep. I was talking with another youth leader locally who's using I think it's called Realms. It's what ACS used to be. I was only thinking of Minecraft Realms. That's the only reason why I named, because my son
I never think of Minecraft. So
yeah, well, my son plays it. So Realms though is I think it was formerly ACS, which is a database that we used to use back in the day at another church I was at. But yeah, there's lots out there. We're not endorsing any. No. We're just explaining what we use. So people have asked me that recently for some reason. Okay, favorite sports team. Now this is like any sport.
Yeah.
Right? Like this is not just one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So any sports team, what is your favorite?
So we are in the great Commonwealth of Virginia. Fun fact. Not state of Virginia. Yeah, Commonwealth of Virginia. Virginia Tech Hokies. I told you it's going to surprise you.
I am kind of surprised.
Yeah. So
what is that?
So, okay, if you're familiar with the Northern Virginia area, which I know you are, but our listeners, there's no college around here that everybody likes. Mason. That everybody likes. Did I finish that sentence? In the sense,
lots of colleges, but yeah.
But in the sense, like when I went down to Tennessee for school and I was in East Tennessee,
it's not SEC. Yeah.
No, but I was just amazed that like it is orange everything. Yeah, and that's not here.
Big culture.
Like
SEC
when you,
sports.
like pro nights here when they have college nights, they'll have like 12 different college nights because there's all. So point being, like I didn't grow up with a favorite college, but then my oldest sister,
I totally get what you're saying.
My oldest sister went to Virginia Tech, and we went to a couple football games, and like I was hooked. Yeah. So like I love all things DC sports, like Capitals, Nationals, Wizards, that other football team that plays.
What are they called?
We don't have to talk about it.
What are they called?
We don't have to talk about it. But
you know where you stand.
But no, Virginia Tech Hokies.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I grew up a Hokies fan.
Yeah.
For the same, like similar reasons. It was like the closest proximity to like a like a big culture, like sports culture team. But then I met my now wife, and she comes from a Tennessee family. Her dad and her sister went to Tennessee.
Go Vols.
And the Vols. I've been grafted into a Vols family. And so, have you been to a Vols game before?
Well, there's a lot of grafting in the family trees in Tennessee Volunteer fan base.
Just one branch. No. So have you been to a Vols game though?
I have. I have been.
Okay. So they do it right. Like they
do.
It's
and
like
we have
parade,
a big Tennessee contingent of listeners for the podcast. So we probably got
great. Yeah. So go Vols. So that's my favorite. I mean, so we were just watching Tennessee. I mean, it's like not just football though. Like we watch basketball.
Thompson Bowling Arena.
Yeah. So they're
VFL.
Yeah. They lost
GBL
on Saturday.
They did.
Yeah, we were kind of bummed about that, but anyways, we so Tennessee is my I was about to say alma mater, but I didn't go there. Is my favorite sports team.
Sing Rocky Top for us right now. Best rendition.
No, but my father-in-law though, when you play that song, no matter what, like he could literally like be in a coma, like on a hospital bed, and he'll get up and dance to that song.
There you go.
Like he is 100%. Like he bleeds orange. Like he's, in fact, if you were to walk in right now, he would be wearing some form of Vols orange on his body, like socks, shirt, whatever. Okay, so who would you be nervous about meeting in person?
Oh,
like you would like geek out. I mean, like you'd be like starstruck if you met this person in person.
Oh man,
they have to be alive. They have to be alive.
They have to be alive. Oh, that is a tough one. There's probably some athletes that I would like really nerd out. I'm actually gonna go. Oh, there's some authors, dude. Do you have one? This is stumping me. Like I don't. I would say probably. All right, I would say, being a DC sports fan, I'd probably say Alex Ovechkin. I think he's like the one guy that like I would like, kind of be
kind of surprised about that.
But he's like he seems like
a
down to earth guy. So like it wouldn't be like,
it would be like nerve wracking.
No, but like he would be the one that like I would embarrass myself in order to like get a picture with him. But I think most other people I'd be like, I don't want to bother him like that. Sorry.
Yeah.
But like I think he'd be the one guy.
I mean, okay, so if you were to like, I mean, because any kind of author that I like,
that was the other thing I was
thinking
thinking of author.
Wouldn't be that big a deal because most of the people I read are like Christians, and like meeting other like quote famous Christians has never been like a thing.
No.
I'm like, you're just another guy like me.
Yeah.
Like you're just normal, whatever. Like you're a follower. Like so, I don't want to elevate you to this point.
Yeah.
Now, somebody that I think I would be nervous about meeting, like I would be like, oh my goodness, like because he's just so well known. I think it would be Elon Musk. Not that I would be like,
he's a weird dude.
That's what I'm saying. Like I wouldn't know what he would
to do.
Like how would he would talk to me? Like
yeah.
Why would I even be meeting him? Like there would be so many things that I would be nervous about. Just like if I met him, like I don't even know what like we would talk about because there's so many different things that he's into and like known for.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it would be intimidating to meet him because, dude, I mean, like regardless of how you feel about it, like a pretty smart dude. Like,
oh, he's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'd feel like so dumb probably just talking to me. It's like, so you like sports? Like, I don't know. Yeah. So with that, I think, Elon Musk would be pretty nerve wracking to me. Okay. So this one's interesting. I didn't ask you this one beforehand too.
You didn't ask me that one beforehand.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to
mix it up a little bit.
Yeah. Mix it up. All right. So favorite non-Christian band or artist? Do you want me to answer for you?
That I can share with no. That I can share on this platform. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so my music choices probably would surprise you. I like a little bit of everything, actually.
Everybody says that.
No. Like I do. Like actually.
Yeah, everybody says that too.
Okay. So if I told you,
surprise me.
My favorite artist, I like a lot of country, but country's so tough because there's like the same artist can put out like. Pretty good. And not
Are you generally a country fan?
Yeah, that's my biggest genre. So I like kind of like more deep cut guys. I mean, I went to school in Nashville too. So like I like Ian Munsick, who's kind of folksy, but again, he's got some stuff. Know who that is. Yeah,
I probably heard his songs.
Yeah. He's got some different stuff. Drew Green. Some different things like that. By the way, I just thought of my answer for your last question. I'll share it in a second. But I actually like a lot of like older rock. So like Creedence Clearwater Revival would probably be my answer.
Not what I was expecting.
Not something
I
listen.
Still live?
I don't. I just listen to their music. I don't.
That's like
60s, 60s, 70s.
60s, 70s.
Creedence Clearwater Revival and Fleetwood Mac. Those would be my
okay.
two,
Well,
probably.
Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah,
the singer's dead.
Well, I didn't say they were alive. I just said they're who I listen to.
Wait a second. Is Fleet? No. They're not dead.
This has gone surprising road that I did not think of going.
All right, if you know in the comments, is Fleetwood Mac dead? We're not even gonna Google it. We're just gonna find out through the comments.
All right, yours.
Live
By the way, person I would be nervous to meet, Nate Bargatze. We just saw him. In person.
Funny.
He's hilarious. I would love to meet him, but he would be the one that I would actually.
Like he's a believer. Like
I don't know. I've tried to look into it a little bit.
So I know someone. Well, okay. So I know someone who knew his father-in-law, who was actually a pastor.
Oh, he was raised like hardcore Christian.
Yeah,
it's pretty funny. He's got a pretty.
And his dad was like a magician and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious. But we just saw him live. He would be the one I'd be interested in because it's always nervous. Like when somebody else was like funnier than you, because humor is kind of how I normally break situations.
You can't
out humor them. So like
that would be nerve-wracking.
I would love to meet him, but he would probably be the one that would be nervous to meet.
You know, okay, his SNL skit on the weights and measures was the funniest SNL skit I think I've ever seen.
Wait till you see his new special. We saw it. Wait till it comes out. He's got a bit about PETA in the 90s doing the Lord's work. You'll see it. Legally, I don't think I can say anything more than that.
Did you have to sign an NDA or something?
No, I did not. But your favorite artist or musician?
All right, so this might. I don't know. I'm similar to that, like where like I have a very eclectic taste in music.
Everybody says that.
I mean, I listen to a lot of Christian stuff, whatever, of course, like worship music and everything. That's my favorite. But the I really like Jack Johnson.
Yeah. Okay.
You know him?
My wife loves him. Yeah.
So, I think I'd be that he's like one of my favorite artists. But yeah. Oh man, because like I've never heard anything of his that I didn't like. That's how I kind of measure. Like, there's a lot of artists that I like some of their stuff, and I'm like, this is kind of getting weird. Like, but yeah, I like a lot of his stuff. I mean, I kind of like John Mayer and like his blues stuff especially. But I've like I don't have a lot of regrets in life, but one of the regrets that I have, actually, I know who my person is. I know now. I'll tell you in a second. One of the regrets that I have was I had the opportunity to go see B.B. King in concert. You don't even know who that is. Oh, my gosh. All right. Just look him up. He's like the king of blues.
I'm not a blues guy.
Okay. So he's like amazing blues musician.
Yeah.
Well, and I was like, and I consciously remember, I was like, you know what? I should get this. Like, he's getting older. I'm going to get these tickets. I'm going to go have a blast. And he died right after that concert. And I was like, dang it.
I thought the king of blues was Duke Silver.
I don't know who that is, but
Ron Swanson, Parks and Rec, deep cut.
Yeah. All right. So anyways, my favorite musician right now outside, I just know without a doubt, like he's so impressive to me, is Chris Stapleton.
Okay. I've heard him in concert.
I mean, like lyrically, musically, like just like musician, and then just vocals, like it's so distinct. So
my buddies had to break up 2 fights at a Chris Stapleton concert.
Hey, there you go. Yep. All right, so we have a couple 1-minute questions. We're gonna transition from favorite non-Christian band artist to now doing a 1-minute question.
Okay,
which I need my timer right for this to work.
Correct.
Okay, so let me get it here. I forget where my timers are.
Am I going first? I'll ask you.
Yeah, you're going first.
Okay.
Oh, no. You're sorry. You're asking me first.
Okay.
Okay.
So Keith, somebody comes up to you, student comes up to you, and asks the following question: How can we know God exists?
How can we know that God exists? Well, I like to do an exercise that I learned from my boss, Todd Peters, and he basically says, like, are you an open atheist? So if you're an atheist believing that God doesn't exist, are you an open atheist? And they say, okay, sure, like I'll play along. And then you take a napkin out and you draw a dot and just say, you know, if this is what you know, like, and the napkin represents the known universe, and this dot right here is actually what I think I know about the universe. Okay, make a dot or a circle, whatever, around, about how much you think you know about the known universe. And sometimes they'll even be bold enough to draw a circle around your dot to show that they know more than you. But they'll make like a little mark whenever it's like, so then the possibility that you don't know anything outside of the known universe that you just defined here in this little small circle, is it possible that God can exist outside of what you already know? And they say, well, yeah, it's possible. Okay, well, then you just became not an atheist, but an agnostic, where you just don't know. And so then from that, you can observe from creation, you know, in Romans 1, like God created things that would clearly display his attributes. So how can you look at creation and observe that there's not a creator that didn't get here? So that foundationally, that's how I would kind of approach the conversation. But that was way more than a minute. Way more by like 19 seconds. Not even close. Like, but maybe you can cut that up to make it less than a minute. But yeah. All right. So question for you, 1-minute question, which I need to like practice things like this. Like this is good practice to know how to define things quickly. All right. So number one question, actually this is not the number one question. This is a 1-minute question. Do babies go to heaven?
So, you won't find it written in the Bible, but there's a phrase that's thrown around called the age of accountability, essentially the age at which somebody can understand the gospel. There's a lot of different opinions on that. The only thing we can really look at in Scripture is the story of David and Bathsheba and their son. And so you find it in 1 Samuel where because of David's sin, his son dies. And so he is grieving and fasting while his son is sick. And they come to him and say, David, your son has died. And he stops fasting. And they say, what's the deal? And he said, can I go, or can he come to me? No, but I will go to him. And so based on that precedence in Scripture, it's the basics of what we believe that, yes, any baby that dies inside the womb or outside the womb would go to heaven based on that passage of Scripture.
Good. Just less than a minute, 54 seconds.
There you go.
Can I take some of your seconds and add to mine?
I don't think that's how that works.
That's not how it works. All right. Well, we have concluded another episode of Beyond the Youth Room podcast. We are seeing a lot of exposure on different platforms. We are on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok even. TikTok is actually the most rapidly growing platform that we're on right now.
Yep.
So if you're seeing some of these clips on there, we'd love for you to follow us and like, subscribe, comment, follow us on all those platforms if you're on them, and we'd love to earn the opportunity to be shared by you. And so if you want to share this with other people that would benefit them, we'd love for you to do that so that we can make a larger impact. So thank you so much for supporting us, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.